Greetings, fellow action figure connoisseurs, and welcome to another episode of Digital Caveman Presents G.I. Joe Tuesday. I, as always, am your host, the Digital Caveman, and today I will be presenting you with my G.I. Joe Classified Series Top 10 of 2023. Let's get into it! Here's my G.I. Joe Classified Series honorable mention for the year. The Walmart exclusive retro carded Snake Eyes, or retro Snake Eyes. And this guy really is retro. He does really go back to that original Commando Snake Eyes Real American Hero figure with just a little bit of updates, such as, you know, his pistol. And he comes with some smoke grenades that he can throw in a knife. And of course, you can't have a Commando Snake Eyes without the Uzi and the satchel charges. And the head sculpt on this one really goes back to that Real American Hero vibe. And it's not that I don't like the Alpha Commandos Commando Snake Eyes. I do think that's a nice classified Snake Eyes, but for me, that classic Commando Snake Eyes is always going to be pretty simple. A ski mask and a mask and goggles, satchel charge, and an Uzi. No swords, no ninja stuff. He's just a commando. And while I do like the ninja aspect of Snake Eyes, this, you know, was my first introduction to Snake Eyes back in 82. I want to say 82. And, you know, when I think of Snake Eyes doing commando stuff, this is what I think of. And even though a lot of this figure, almost, you know, the figure itself, probably 99% of it is reused from Stalker, that reuse really makes sense for this figure, at least in my opinion. Your mileage, of course, may vary. Well, there he is, my G.I. Joe Classified Series honorable mention, the Walmart exclusive retro carded Commando Snake Eyes. Here is my number 10 pick for G.I. Joe Classified Series. Sergeant Stalker, or just Stalker to me. I always just call him Stalker. And I know for trademark purposes they had to put the sergeant on there, and he might have been a sergeant, but to me he's always Stalker, the Ranger, the Army Ranger. And in fact, Green Beret Army Ranger, I want to say. And I do like, you know, he does have some updated, just like I mentioned with the retro carded Snake Eyes. He's very classic feeling, but with some modern updates. The knife and the pistol with the silencer and the machine gun that he's got in his hand. But he also has the more classic looking gun in his backpack. The only thing that would have made this Stalker even more perfect, and probably would have gotten him up higher on the list, is if he had come packed with the jump jet pack. Because to me, you can't have Stalker without the jump jet. It's like the original figure should have come with it, because, you know, the only one I ever remember seeing in the animation that used the jump jet pack. And I think it makes sense for Stalker to always be using the jump jet pack. But unfortunately, he didn't come with it, and, you know, that dropped him a few spots in my book. So here he is, number 10 for G.I. Joe Classified series for the year, Sergeant Stalker. Here's my number 9 G.I. Joe Classified series pick for the year, the Hasbro Pulse exclusive Chuckles. And I have to say, you know, I liked the figure of Chuckles, but I never was a big fan of how they used him in G.I. Joe the movie, where, you know, he gets up on top of the tomahawk and he's spinning the rotors. And, you know, even as a child, that made zero sense to me. But I do really like this figure, and I can tell you, the whole time I was doing his reviews, I wanted it to come in red, the shirt come in red, and have an alternate Magnum PI or Tom Selleck head for it, and that would have been awesome. The accessories that Chuckles comes with are fantastic. The Sound Blaster, his pistols, handcuffs, broken handcuffs, the beat up head, the alternate hands with the brass knuckles, and the briefcase, and I'm sure I'm leaving something out. Now, the one drawback to this figure, or at least one of the drawbacks, the main drawback, at least to me, for this figure is the shoulder harness or shoulder holster for his pistol, and it doesn't stay in place good. I really wish they would have made it where you could peg it into his back so it would kind of stay in one place, or where you could peg a backpack through it so it would stay in one. Anyway, the harness, the shoulder harness, doesn't quite work for me. Everything else in this pack is great. Oh, and don't forget those binoculars. I did forget binoculars. So, great figure with great accessories, and it should have come in red with the Magnum PI head. But there he is, my friends. Number 9 for G.I. Joe Classified series for the year, Chuckles. Here is my number 8 pick for G.I. Joe Classified series this year, my friends. The Hasbro Pulse exclusive Dr. Mindbender. I want to say it was a PulseCon exclusive at that. And I realized, you know, it was a last year figure, but I didn't get it reviewed last year. So he makes the list this year because I got him reviewed this year. And I really like the figure. I do think, you know, the monocle, the mustache, it gives him that classic, you know, black and white silent movie villain feel. And then, you know, he just wants to show off how ripped he is with, you know, just wearing suspenders and no shirt and a cape. So he might be flabby on the back. I don't know. I hadn't looked to see if he's flabby on the back, but he's, you know, he's pretty buff in the front, I guess you could say. And he comes with a ton of accessories, and they're all just great accessories. You can see a few of them here, like his classic, I think the classic version, or the more classic version of his mind control ray gas, or I honestly, I don't remember what was supposed to come out the gun, but I always thought it was, you know, something to help him control people's minds. And then, you know, he's got in his other hand the injector, and then he also has a sidearm as well, and those nice forearm armor and those slick knee-high boots. So overall, a great character. It goes great with Serpentor if you happen to have that one as well. So there he is, my friends. My number 8 pick for G.I. Joe Classified series for the year, the Hasbro Pulse exclusive Dr. Mindbender. He wants to be your dentist. Here is my G.I. Joe Classified Series number 7 pick for the year. The Crimson Guard. And I know some people had some issues getting hold of these guys at first, and then they'd show up at Ross and they show up at Ollie's, and I never saw them at those places. I did get mine from Pulse. I pre-ordered and got them. But I have to say, you know, this guy, to me, is a lot more classic than he is modern. And I have zero problems with that, because I always thought this is one of the coolest looking dudes from A Real American Hero, at least from when I was collecting the line. The only thing that they could have done to make this figure better is, instead of an automatic sidearm, he came with a revolver like he had molded in the original Real American Hero figure. Molded, you know, it was molded on his leg in the holster, but it was definitely a revolver. And, you know, that's the only thing that could have really made this guy go up any further on the list. The gun that he carries is very reminiscent of that. He does come with a sword. The backpack is very reminiscent of that Real American Hero Crimson Guard. And the tampos and the decos on this guy are just really, really good. And, you know, Crimson Guards, they're cool. So, here we have my number 7 pick for G.I. Joe Classified Series for the year. The Crimson Guard. For my number 6 G.I. Joe Classified Series pick, it's the Televiper and the Flight Pod. Now, I do think the Televiper is, you know, he feels really, really classic. And the only things that keep him from being super classic is, like, you know, he's wearing that bodysuit underneath, under his, you know, for his sleeves. And I understand why they did that, so that you could swap the heads out and not have to swap the arms out, because, you know, the alternate head, you know, it's a different ethnicity, and that really would have made things messed up if he had had an ethnic head and Caucasian arms. So there is that. And the deco on the guy, you know, it is what it is. There's not a whole lot of it. Some on the form readouts, you know, the face and the overlay for the vest. So not a whole lot going on there, but he does look sharp. The Flight Pod itself, again, looks really, really good. And it probably would have been a little higher on the list, except for the, you know, the connectors for the missiles. They don't stay in place very well. I did have to correct a defect in the bubble, the canopy, because the tab was just slightly too big on one side for it to close all the way like it should. And we also have the mine, the flying mine, which I would have liked to have seen, you know, a storage section inside the Flight Pod. There was room for it. All they had to do was just make a slide panel or a pop open panel, or it could have pegged into the jetpack. That would have been fine. And I know it ports into the back of the gun, but I don't like that look. You can't land the thing with that look. It has to stay flying in order for that to be on there. And, you know, those not many dings for this figure and vehicle, but, you know, it is there. And as much as I love the Televiper and the Flight Pod, which is always the figure that used to fly it for me when I played with the original figures, you know, Televiper always flew the Flight Pod, because I thought, you know, he looks cool and the Flight Pod is cool, and two cool things should always go together. Of course, I thought a lot of the Cobra stuff was cool, so but he won the coin flip, I guess, for the flight pod, and he always got to use the flight pod. And so again, you know, it does have a few issues with it, and they're pretty simple things to fix, except for the storage for the mine. That one's not so simple to fix, so I haven't fixed it yet. But there he is, my friends. My number 6 pick for G.I. Joe Classified series, the Televiper and Flight Pod 2-pack. And here, my friends, we have my number 5 pick for G.I. Joe Classified series for the year, from the Crimson Strike Team 3-pack, the Baroness. Now, you know, I really didn't include Tomax and Zaymot on here because basically the only things that were updated on those guys were the deco. And even though the deco for the face look a lot better than the original releases, I didn't feel like it was enough for those two also to be included. Now, the Baroness here is a little bit of a different tune, I guess you could say. Now, one thing I was disappointed, they did not update her knees to be pinless. They're just using that same Cobra Island Baroness, and for the most part this one is still, you know, just Cobra Island Baroness. The arms did get updated, and they did give her double hinged pinless there, and of course the portraits, which were there a couple, you know, or was it 3? Might have been 3, I don't recall right offhand. And they gave her the round glasses, which is super excellent, and I love it. And they also gave you the option, she does have 2 hair pieces, so you can give her the relaxed look like she has now, or there's a more action oriented wig. And you know, I make fun of that feature a lot with Classified series, but I do think it's a really good thing that, you know, you can swap the heads and the hair and you know, give distinctive look for whatever you're trying to do with it. And so, you know, again, I do wish they had updated the legs on this. I understand why they didn't, because they'll probably release a more classic version that's mostly like this, and they'll update the knees with that. But really and truthfully, it wouldn't have taken that much more to have gone ahead and done it with this one, and I would have still bought a classic on this mold as well anyway. But there she is, my friends, number 5 for G.I. Joe Classified series for the year, Crimson Strike Team Baroness from the Pulse exclusive Crimson Strike Team 3-pack. My friends, here's my number 4 pick for G.I. Joe Classified series for the year, the Target exclusive Tiger Force Outback. And of course, I do have the more classically themed regular release Outback as well, which is pretty much, you know, it's the exact same sculpt, just different deco. And I have to say, when comparing the two, I like this one better, and I think it mostly has to do with the deco for the head. Not, you know, the tiger, orange tiger t-shirt, not all that great to me. You know, it's unique, and it, you know, it's kind of cool in a way, and you know, it makes as much sense as the regular release having Survival on his t-shirt, so at least to me. But the head, the deco for the head, I was going to say the head sculpt, but the deco on the head for this one really puts it, pardon the pun, head and shoulders above the regular release of it. And this is the only Tiger Force figure that I got. Now, I did get some of the Python Patrol stuff, but I didn't get all of it because some of it just does not appeal to me. But this is the only Tiger Force figure that appealed to me. I almost picked up Tiger Force Duke and Ram Cycle, but the deco on that Ram Cycle just, honestly, and I'm sorry, I don't want to offend anybody when I say this, but it turned my stomach. I really do not like that deco. The Duke, however, looked really, really good. And I would probably still be considering that one had the retro carded Duke not been announced, and you know, it's going to be widely available instead of being a Walmart exclusive. But here he is, my friends, number 4 for G.I. Joe Classified Series for the year, Tiger Force Outback. Here is my number 3 G.I. Joe Classified Series pick for the year, the Deluxe Snow Job. And I have to say, this guy comes with a ton of accessories, and he can store them all except for the extra head and the hood when it's down that goes with that extra head. So everything else he has storage for, and it's really, really cool, I think, that he's able to store all of his gear. The goggles with the hood up are a little tricky at some points, trying to get them to stay in position, but if you work at it a little bit, you can get them on there and they look really good. He comes with skis and snowshoes, and I would have thought for sure that those snowshoes would have been reused with the Snow Serpent, but I think they are a little different with the Snow Serpent. But the original figure, you know, he had, you know, on the head, his beard was colored and his flesh was colored, and then his goggles were black, his hood was white. Most of the figure was white except for his hands and his boots, or his gloves and his boots. And this is a nice homage to that, I think, with some modern updates. Instead of just being solid white, now he's kind of a two-tone, and it's really just a nice looking figure. And the alternate hood down head that he has it looks really, really good. It reminds me of the old 70s Adventure Force G.I. Joes, the 1/6 scale, and that's really what it kind of reminds me of. But this guy, he's really cool, and there he is, my number 3 G.I. Joe Classified pick for the year, Snow Job. Here's my number 2 G.I. Joe Classified Series pick for the year, Zarana, Zartan's sister. And I have to say, the deco and the sculpt on this one are great. There's just so many little deco details going on, like the chain there on her belt that you can see now, the silver paint app there on her shoulder, the zippers for her jacket, and then we have, you know, she's got a knife or a dagger in a leg sheath, and she has that rifle with a circular saw on it, or at least a circular saw blade on it, which is, you know, that's pretty cool, and it fits right in with the Dreadnoks as far as aesthetics go. And then she's got that, I don't know exactly what to call the knife that she has in her backpack. It's almost like it's a gun handle, but not quite. And it has some gizmos on it. It looks like maybe it's a hot knife, so that she can cut through a lot of material quickly. Materials, not as not material as in fabric, but materials as in other things. So maybe that's what that's supposed to be. I'm not sure. It doesn't really say. I haven't heard anybody say exactly what that's supposed to be. But in my mind, we're just going to say it's a hot knife. And, you know, I like the fact that she comes with, and I know I make fun of this a lot during reviews, but she comes with a wig that has her more classic 80s hairstyle, but I prefer this one on this figure. I think it really matches what's going on with this figure, and it actually looks really cool. And the paint that they did on it, the deco, it's really cool, and she's very punk rock looking to me. Your mileage, of course, may vary. But there she is, my friends. My number 2 G.I. Joe Classified Series pick for the year, Zarana. And here's the moment you've all been waiting for, my friends. My number 1 G.I. Joe Classified Series pick for the year, Deluxe Scrap Iron. And I have to say, this guy is, you know, he has a lot of that classic feel to the Real American Hero figure from the 80s, with some nice modern updates. Namely, his missile launcher. Back in the day, you know, it was just on a little 3-legged stand, or a tripod maybe, I guess you could call it. And, you know, how does he carry this around? Does he haul it around on his back or whatever? So with the updated version, the more modern version, they fixed that quandary by giving it tank treads and a remote control. And if I remember correctly, and I believe I do, the old one had like one of those little rubber hose pieces that connected to a small handheld activation switch and then to the rocket launcher itself. Whereas this one is fully remote controlled, and as you can see, he's using his Nintendo Switch to control it. Not really, but I just thought that was funny because it does kind of look like a Nintendo Switch with some big antennae on it. Another thing that really sets this set apart is the fact that we finally get to see what Scrap Iron looks like under that helmet and visor, and he's kind of burned up a little bit. So, very nice deco there. And then the exhausts where the missiles are launching, those are a nice effect as well that can be utilized in other places in the line. So pretty cool. But there it is, my friends, my number 1 G.I. Joe Classified Series pick for the year, Scrap Iron. That, my friends, completes my top 10 G.I. Joe Classified Series of 2023. I hope you enjoyed it. I enjoyed making it. Only support from viewers like you make this programming possible. Each view does count, and I do appreciate each and every single view that I receive. Thank you, and thank you so very, very much for supporting this channel through viewing. Comment below, like, share, subscribe if you'd like to see more reviews or just help the channel out further, or both, that's even better. And don't forget to ding that bell so that in the future you will be notified as my new content becomes available. That's a wrap, folks. I'll see you next time.